participants in the chat. Thank you all so much, everyone, for being here today. We really appreciate your time and attention as we look at what I think is probably the most important topic, maybe aside from the actual foundational knowledge you provide your students. I think being kind and all the things that surround that. I think there are a lot of different ways to look at that. And so I appreciate Tom Schneid from Safety, Security, Emergency Management coming to speak with us today about his experience relative to being nice and how to operationalize that in online courses and probably beyond as well. And Tom is chair and at least acting director of the master's program in SSEM, and it's been around a long time, maybe even longer than me, and that's saying quite a lot. So thank you, Tom, so much, and take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. This is a presentation I did down at the Distance Learning Academy a couple of months ago, and it came about by observations and then literature study, and then trying to look at how we can modify this in a distance learning and online environment. Let's go to the next slide, Chris. Here's one that this is the basis of this presentation. Everybody we meet as we go through has other things going on in their life. Yeah. We don't know what those things are in their life. So we need to be aware and just be kind and be nice as we move through this thing. The alternate title that I had for this was "Don't Be a Jerk." And basically, it's not so much our faculty, but sometimes you get facilitators, you get adjuncts that don't come across to their students the way we should. We need to be kind. We need to always understand that they're going through a whole lot of other things in their lives along with what we're going through in our life. Next slide, Chris. And realize, especially in the online world, everything we put there is forever. And the words we say to students can hurt. Conversely, the words we say to students can help their situation. But we need to stop and think before we start pounding out on the keys and responding to students. Next slide. Here was an article at a Chronicle back in January. What I was looking for is some of the responses you get from students are not what I would think would be appropriate, what they're saying to their faculty members. And what this article talked about is that there's kind of that professors are enemies out there. We're not their enemy. We're here to help them. We're to guide them, to mentor them as we go through. We're not the enemy, and they shouldn't perceive us as being the enemy. Okay, Chris. Some of the things we're encountering in addition is we've got instructor burnout that's going on. We've got student burnout that's going on. We've got early retirements that are coming out. It's having an impact across the board. Let's go to the next one. We've had what they called the great faculty disengagement, where this is also from another Chronicle article, that basically where faculty are just stopping. They just can't do anymore. And I don't know about you, but these past couple semesters, even the past couple years, have been an interesting scenario that I've not seen in the last 30 years. Let's go to the next one. Increased faculty and staff retirements. And I apologize for the T, that got cut off with Google as we went across. We're seeing that across the board. And it's not just us. After this presentation, I probably stood around for an hour and a half, and it's colleges and universities all over the country that are encountering the same issues across the board. Next. The COVID has had impacts on not only the students, and we know that it's had a great impact on students, but it's also had a great impact on instructors. And trying to work from home, you've got other things. It's not our norm that we've gone to. So we've got to stop and think, how can we make this better as we move forward? Go ahead. Mental health, we've seen a lot at EKU about mental health across the board. We are putting that in our online classes. It's going to be on everybody's syllabus as we move forward. ADA, when somebody comes and asks for an accommodation, we've got an ADA office that helps us there. But also we've got to be able to direct our students to these locations so they can get the help that we need. In campus, it's fairly easy. You go out in the hallway, you talk to the student, you direct them to the right place. When we're online, it's a little more difficult, but those same resources are available to our online students as they are for our campus students. Next slide. We don't know what the background of these students are, especially online. We get a little bit in their chats back and forth, but we don't know a whole lot about their background, what the situation they're into. One thing that we found as our traditional campus students are taking more online classes. I don't know about your departments, but in ours, we're trying to push them, the ones that are on campus, to get back into the classroom instead of taking online, because we've got a large number that are sitting in the dorm and not taking online classes that should be coming to campus. But one thing that we have run into in certain regions of the country, the parents are having an impact on students. Take online, stay home. Stay with us. It's almost like a home discrimination that they don't want their students coming to campus, that they don't want them to grow up to a great extent. There's also the financial components that go along with it and the work components, because most of our students are working too as they go through. They don't want to lose that job. It has a financial impact on the families. Next slide. Here's some of the online classroom factors and influences that I saw in the literature and we've noticed throughout the area. Let's go to the next one. This is an article from Chronicle, Wokeness Gone Mad. Does everyone know what wokeness is? I didn't know. And I've had students come forward and go, they called me a Wokey. Is that a Star Wars thing or what is it? The next one's the definition. Wokeness is a state of being aware, especially of social problems such as racism and inequality, which is an area that we've been focusing on for a substantial period of time. Watch your conversations in and among the students in there. Sometimes they use the terminology that really doesn't meet the definition of what we're looking for. Go to the next slide. We also have some economic, and we're seeing that right now with inflation that's going on. We've got some political divisions. We've got a more aggressive society than we've had historically, and a more split society. It's kind of 50-50 as to where you're going. This has an influence on your students, thus it's going to have an influence on your classes as you're in there, especially in the discussion boards and when the virtual office, when they're responding to you in this process. We need to keep in mind those things can be lightning bolts. If we hit any of those areas that they have a strong position on, you're probably going to get pushback. Let's go to the next one. Social media is also having a great influence. We advertise there, everybody's on there. There's good things and bad things about social media, but for these students, it's having a bigger influence than I've seen in a long time. Go out in the hallway, and before students would be talking, they'd be in groups. Now they got their nose in a phone across the board. What information are they getting? Is it right? Is it wrong? That's where they're bringing those influences into our online classrooms. Let's go to the next one. Students are, on a whole, they've gone through a lot over the last 2 or 3 years. There's some frustrations there. A lot of them, at least in our field, they're working full time and trying to take classes. They're burned out. They got other things. And there's expectations being placed upon them by their employer, by their families, by themselves, that may not be the expectations that the faculty members are having across the board. Let me give you a case study. Chris, can we get responses? Can we open it up? Okay, let me ask you.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
No, we can absolutely take responses either in chat or they can unmute themselves and speak.
Okay. Okay, this is an email to a professor. It's 10:26 p.m. on a Saturday night, which is not unusual for online faculty members to be working. Professor, this is Tom. I'm in your OSH 110 class. I just saw that you gave me a grade of 5 on my case briefing assignments. I want to protest. I checked the rubric and I should get a full 10 points for this assignment. This is unfair. I've worked hard on this assignment and I deserve full credit. You're discriminating against me and I feel this is totally unfair. I expect you to review my submission immediately and correct my grade. Tom. Faculty member responds back. Tom, this is a 5-point assignment in a class with 600 possible points. I will not review again because you did not read and respond appropriately to the question. Do not email me again, Professor. What do you think?
It sounds a little too abrupt, a little too rude. Even if the professor disagreed with that, you could still reply in a more neutral way and just focus on the syllabus. Always go back to the syllabus when in doubt.
Good.
JP says, ouch.
Well, let's look at the backgrounds of what's going on between these two people. Okay, Tom's just worked 48 hours at his employer's and returns from his grandfather's funeral on Saturday. His employer had just informed him that if he doesn't acquire an A in the class, the new HR policy is going to reduce the employer benefit and according to the grade he receives. And Tom's significant other has told him that a divorce is imminent if he doesn't start spending time at home. Now here's the faculty member. After relaxing in the afternoon of the football game with a few expensive beers, the professor is at home with a glass of Merlot. She is spending the evening hours grading the assignments and has already heard from 4 students complaining about their grade on this assignment. And this is 10:26 in the evening. Could this have been done better?
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, this is JP. I just put in the chat box, I said, you know, the instructor should have at least mentioned the requirements of the assignment and then the student's performance versus those requirements. But probably the better thing to do would be say, hey, I'll take a look, and then answer the same thing tomorrow and make them think that you took some time, whether you did or not. I mean, for the most part, we know the requirements of our assignments pretty well, and we can make those responses. But 10:26 p.m. on a Saturday, you know, you can de-escalate just by answering during reasonable hours sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Patty, has got a comment there?
Yeah, I said if 4 students are complaining, then the instructor should review. I thought that the student was rude, but the instructor could have reframed the incident to be more accommodating.
Absolutely. Could have de-escalated the whole thing, just like JP said, and you're saying, just with the words. Hey, I'll look at it. I'll get back to you. Maybe I made a mistake. I don't know. But to get aggressive, that's just going to escalate the situation.
Well, the instructor could have asked the student what exactly their concerns were.
Good point.
Laurel made a similar comment a bit above there, Tom. Good comment that it was an escalation so late at night, so quick after the initial email.
Absolutely. Good. Let's go to the next one, Chris. But I'm not going to do it because of time purposes. We won't do the second one. Let's go to the next slide. We need to realize that behind the mirror, there's factors on everything we do. There's an impact from when we look at that student. We've got to look behind the mirror, and we got to look at what the influences are from outside of the classroom, because everybody can have a bad day, but we can make their day better in the way we respond to them. Let's go to the next one. One thing we found in the literature review is that there's a lot of stress, a lot of loneliness, and sleeplessness and hopelessness as we have gone through these things. It's getting better, but we need to also realize these things are out there and we need to be aware of them as we go through. Let's go to the next one. A lot of our students are overwhelmed. I know we're post-COVID, but these have not gone away. A lot of our students are working, and the employer, because they can't get people to come to work, they were supposed to work 20 hours this week and they're working 40 hours this week. They're going home. They've got stresses and pressures from home. We're putting pressure on them in the class. And then there's situations like COVID that pop up that can throw the whole schedule off for a substantial period of time. Let's go to the next one. This was a great article in Chronicle, how to give our students the grace we all need. And it's basically just stopping and thinking. Conversely, once we write something in Blackboard, it's there forever. And that's where we see a lot of grade appeals and other things that have escalated into the administration because the faculty member didn't stop and think before he or she wrote in this process. We need to stop. Let's give the grace that we all need as we move forward in this process. Think before you respond, and be nice as you go through it. Like Patty said earlier, and JP said, you know, it's the way you respond. Those simple words can stop the whole situation. But if we get in and we start, this is not the place to argue back and forth in your virtual office or discussion boards. Okay, Chris had a question.
No, I was just affirming something Patty said, that, you know, she used kind of the phrase, if we don't know what's going on, we can't help. So, you know,
Right.
invite that conversation, be open to hearing about what's going on with our students.
Absolutely. That's perfect, Patty. And going back and looking at how this applies to online, look at your course design. We want to provide the maximum flexibility we can to these students. I know we've got hard deadlines. On Monday at noon, you've got to have all your grades in. So how do we give students the maximum time to try to do their best work as we move through this process? And look at your assignments. Are we giving enough flexibility that students that are working, students that are doing other activities, maybe taking a heavier load this semester, how can we give them as much flexibility as possible within the structure of that online class? Next one. Again, discussion boards is the area that we tend to see a lot of aggressiveness. I'm going to term it as that, where you've got one student that's having a bad day and they take it out on another student in the class. They may not say it to the faculty member, but they're saying it to each other. We have policies in place to address those things, but the faculty member has to jump in and de-escalate the situation as quickly as possible. And it's easier to go in being nice. Tom, you didn't, I don't like what you said to Jimmy. Let's rephrase that. Let me delete that one out and now you respond again. Let's go to the next one. Virtual office. Again, language is very, very important. And this is not the place to argue. Is it, can you stop off? Can I, give me a telephone number. I'll call you. We'll discuss this. Try to find out what else is going on in their life. Is there other avenues? But from a faculty member perspective, once you lock that into the virtual office and your response, it's there forever. And so when it comes back up for grade appeal, when it comes back up for other issues that may be there, it's there forever. So talk with the student, but be very careful as to what you're putting in your response back to that student. JP had a comment. I've been known to delete virtual office posts. It's left me, Chris.
I've been known to delete virtual office posts that I see going sideways, and I'll handle it directly with the student.
That's excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
you can see what I call a death spiral coming sometimes when they all get on one topic, and I really just don't want that mentality in the class. So I'll shoot an email to, sometimes 2 or 3 students. I'll just delete that post and I'll say, hey, I deleted your post. Let's fix this one-on-one. What's going on? Because once that negativity starts, it just spreads.
Absolutely.
Carolyn and Laurel both had some good comments there about having etiquette policies in place. And really, I assume, Carolyn, you're probably going over that with students on some personal level so that they really get that you are serious about those and mean those. And that's great that you haven't had many problems.
No, I mean, basically my students have that in my online courses, especially they have that, and I go over that. And really, honestly, even during COVID, they've been all very considerate with each other and haven't really had many problems there. I mean, the 1 or 2 that were there, I shot, as somebody said, a direct email and contacted them and tried to figure out what was going wrong with them. And so then we usually sorted that out. And that was that.
Excellent. Excellent. One thing we found that using their name when you start instead of, so you're going to specifically address them. Tom, let's talk about this. And thanking them. Thank you for your communications. So you're de-escalating that situation and you're individualizing them as you go through. We had a question. Chris? Yes, always use the first name. Absolutely. I think that helps tremendously as we go through. Chris?
Just further comments. Angela made a comment about students responding well to each other in discussion and also she discusses the whole etiquette issue. We all put stuff in, I think, but I'm really glad and heartened to see so many of you are talking about that, or at least mentioning it in some personal way, that it's important, because it is.
Go to the next slide. Here's one that I thought I'd just go ahead and add it. Drinking and grading. It's kind of like drinking and driving. Whether you're too far one way or too far the other way. We're up, especially in time crunches. We've got all kind of activities going on. You got family things going on. If you're not ready to grade, don't grade. Don't get involved with it. If you're to a point that you think you're not going to be yourself, don't get involved with the class so you're late for a day. We're all under a tremendous amount of time crunches, especially during grading period of time. Our class finishes at midnight on Friday. We have to have grades in by Monday at noon. And we got family life, we got social activities, we've got other things going on. If you're not in a situation where you're 100%, don't start grading. It's like, I wouldn't expect you to get behind the wheel of a car. Let's go to the next one. Some other things to think about. Don't argue with students. Nobody's going to win. Watch you're joking in class. You don't know how they're going to take it one way or the other. And we've had issues over the years where a faculty member thought that they were joking, but it offended somebody. It's just easier to stay away from it. Politics and religion is going to get you in issues. You're going to have, because we've got such a divided society right now, no matter what you say, you're probably offending 50% of the population. So just stay away from them. Don't talk down to students. Yes, you're the professor, but you're also there to guide and mentor and work with those students as you go through. And lastly, give them some grace. We're all going through a very unique time in history. We've got to be able to work with these folks. These students are here to acquire knowledge and acquire a growth over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And they're going to be in online classes with people that have been working in the field for 20 years and 30 years. Let's make sure that nobody is being denigrated in this process. Give grace as we move through. Patty, you had a question? Okay, lastly, and summarizing, we'll go to questions. Let students know that you care about them. as you go through. You're here to mentor, to help, even if they just want to call and talk. I know we're all very, very busy, and especially on the weekends, that's your time, but sometimes that's when students need us. And next, think before you write, especially in online classes, because those words mean something. They can be very helpful or they can be very hurtful, depending on how you frame it. Be as flexible as possible as you can in your online classes, because people have other things going on, just like we have other things going on. I wish we didn't have a hard and fast deadline, but that's part of academia. Students need to realize that, but sometimes things happen. And understand that we're in a unique situation right now. Lauren? Chris?
Laurel just says, I think modeling our interactions, in terms of what we expect for students is the key. And I find that to be very true.
Absolutely. The next one's just questions. Guys, what thoughts do you guys have as we move through this? And like I said, when I did this on a larger scale, and there's a few other areas that we touched on a little more, but this is not something that's unique to EKU. This is throughout academia, throughout the United States. Even some of the European universities that were there are running into the same issues. It's all up to you as to the way you frame it. You can escalate it, you can de-escalate it. And so stop, think about your words before you do it. It's easy, especially as your anxieties continue to build. And faculty have this, we're going through the same thing as students are going through. Think before you write. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I facilitate for you. And so sometimes I have noticed that there are some students who think that their experiences negate the information that you're trying to give them.
Mm-hmm.
So we had one particular student that would always sign his name, Teacher Patty.
Yep.
And very, very rude and abrasive, told us our assignments were stupid, that he would not give them to his high school students. And it's like every week I try to send out an email, and I learned that I can't do it like this. I would send out an email saying, thank you for what you're doing. Your work is great. I enjoy the interactions between you all, but let's work on these things. And so I had one student that was very offended that I would send it to the entire class.
Mm-hmm.
He was very offended that he thought he was doing well and that he felt like I was talking down to him. I wasn't. I was trying to offer suggestions, but then I decided that instead of sending it to the entire class, I would focus on 2 different emails.
Good point.
Sometimes they just don't understand I tell them life happens. I know that it happens, and I will work with you and extend grace. But if I've extended grace 4 and 5 times and you still don't respond to me, then what do you do?
Well, as you're aware, we have 18-year-olds and we got 55, 60-year-olds in the class. And we've always going to have that person that is just back here to get a degree. They've been working in the field for 30 years and they can't get the promotion or they can't get whatever without the degree. So they think they know everything before they ever walk in. Sometimes we need to pull them aside, talk with them. You can work with them, basically say, we need your knowledge. We'd like you to work with these students and share your knowledge and work, but don't be aggressive, because this class was built down the middle. So we've got a lot of different people in here with different skill sets. Yes, you may be a little higher and their egos tend to be really big to start with. So we try to work them in where they can help other students in the process. But if they get too aggressive, then we cut them off.
Right. I know I try to do that. I try to say, I'm so grateful for the information that you're sharing with these other students. It seems like you're developing a bond with them that may last a lifetime, but it's just sometimes you have that one student. Just that
Absolutely.
one.
And it tends to be the older professionals that are coming back into the field. This is too elementary for me. Well, we didn't build the class for you. We built the class for everybody from 18-year-olds to 80-year-olds in the process. And they all don't have the same background and education and knowledge and experience that you have. So let's bring you in and try to be nice and try to work with them in there. But if they get to a point that they're impacting the class, then we pull them aside and talk with them individually. And a lot of them haven't been back to school for 20 years. And so this may not be the right place for them. Go someplace else. Any other thoughts? Patty, I've only had to do that, I think, twice in 33 years. And one, the student calmed down and worked great in the class, and the other one went someplace else. We're not a diploma mill. We're going to offer our classes at the highest quality we can, but we cannot customize a class specifically for that person.
Yeah, that's true. I've had several students apologize. They didn't realize how they were coming across either. So, it's worked out for the best.
Absolutely.
And then Kim is amazing. So, if it gets to be too much to me and I think I might be overstepping, I refer them to her. So,
Absolutely. And then if she tries to talk with them and if it doesn't work, then I try to talk to them. And sometimes we're just not a good fit for them. Hopefully we're able to work. And like you said, 99% of them are going to calm down and be a very positive influence on the class. But there's some that just, especially non-traditionals that haven't been back to school for quite a while, and their egos are huge in the safety field. They think they know more than you do anyhow, or I do. This may not be the right place for them. Any other thoughts? Well, guys, I greatly appreciate the time spent with you. Hopefully give you something to think about as you move through these processes. If nothing else, when you feel yourself getting very, very aggressive after you've had 14 emails shot at you and you got students screaming about different things, stop and think before you write, because those words can have an impact. Thank you all. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Schneid. Really appreciate it today.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We need more follow-up. I love this.